So two of the main men that you're going to hear me give a reference to throughout this training course, Mr. Aaron Beck, who's been referred to as the founding father of CBT, but he pretty much built and based his works upon a lot of the founding ideas of this great man, Mr. Albert Ellis, who's referred to as the founding father of REBT, which is Rational Emotive Behavioural Therapy. And I'm going to share quite a few ideas of Albert Ellis's throughout this training course as well, because they're all relevant and they all kind of merge into one. So here in this video, I want to share with you a fascinating set of ideas about not just how to, continue to get the most from this course, but also how to get the most of your relationships, how to become a more effective listener in life. Because you can have all of the models as a CBT practitioner, you can have all of the ideas, you can have all of the knowledge, but if you struggle to connect and engage with other human beings in a meaningful way, then all of your smarts become completely irrelevant. So, what Albert Ellis suggested was that there are a number of barriers that actually stand in the way of us being able to listen and hear other people effectively in life. Now, this is one of those ideas you can relate to yourself right away, just in the context of your own current day-to-day relationships. Right? See how many of these barriers you currently succumb to, right? Which are actually just, to be honest with you, they're just bad habits, right, that many of us develop in life. Many things get in the way of our listening. We must be aware of these barriers and these bad habits if we are to become more effective listeners, ecologists and CBT practitioners. These bad habits can include listening to more than one voice at a time. Right, let me explain to you what I mean by this. Have you ever found yourself in a conversation with someone? Now, I'll do this sometimes. I frequent Starbucks here in Scotland. That's right, I'm a regular Starbucks goer. And I generally receive a lot of phone calls, a lot of text messages. If I'm meeting people, perhaps guys that I'm coaching or mentoring, we generally do so over coffee. And what I have to work really, really hard at, even still at this stage of my own development and growth, is really discipline my mind to remain focused on what another person's saying. Because sometimes if I'm not doing this, if I'm not prioritizing listening to what another person's actually saying and seeking to understand that which they're saying, I will sometimes fall into a bad habit of listening more to what I'm thinking about what they're saying. So what I'm saying here is sometimes when we're communicating with other people, we can listen more to respond than to actually hear and understand. There's a big difference. We can listen to hear and understand a person, or we'll just be listening so we can respond. We're listening to pick up on when we're going to be able to open our mouths and say something in response. And that's not really the dialogue, is it? It's a difference between monologue and dialogue. Sometimes we can be interacting with people in life, and all that's really happening is kind of two monologues going on. One person's talking at one person, and then another person just talks back at the other person. And no one's actually interested in understanding each other. Both parties are actually just more interested in simply being heard. All right, so I'm going to suggest this is a barrier to effective listening. Mr. Albert Ellis here, he most certainly agrees. So we've got to get clear right now. I mean, you can apply this principle in your own life. As you're listening to this video right now, are you actually focused on listening more to what I'm actually saying, or are you listening more to what your head is telling you about me, whether you like my accent, whether you find me annoying, whether you don't like my presentation, my communication style? Because if you're responding more to all that stuff, which is actually just the voices inside of your own head, then you're going to be missing the essence of what I'm actually talking, which is fundamentally good. It's to build you up, not tear you down, all right? So this is about us overcoming our own personal prejudices, our likes and dislikes, because sometimes we can allow our prejudices, our biases, our likes and dislikes and preferences to get in the way of us connecting meaningfully with other human beings, all right? So as you'll be able to gather, a lot of what I teach through this course is going to center itself around meaningful, healthy connection with other human beings, which is something that we've got to get good at if we are going to practice CBT moving forward. So the second idea, another barrier that can really stand in the way of us hearing and understanding another person is if we find them attractive and we end up over-connecting with them. Now, I know what you're thinking. Kane Ramsey, you're quite a handsome guy, all right? But sometimes it might just not be my physical appearance. It might be the case that I say something that you just totally relate to. And what happens then, as you're completely over-relating to this thing that I've just said, you then go on to completely miss what I go on to say next, which might be the primary nugget. And this is the thing. Listen, we're all imperfect human beings. We're all imperfect speakers. We're all imperfect listeners. All right? We're all just doing the best of what we have, don't we? So it's important that we understand that, again, our likes and dislikes can sometimes really stand in the way and prevent us from hearing all that is being said. Sometimes we'll find a communicator unattractive and we'll end up disconnecting with them. Now, I've done this sometimes in the past. I think, when was it? About 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was, I think I'd gone shopping with my wife, Karen, and I was standing waiting to get served in a counter, and there was a guy working behind, and he had like really, really stale, foul breath. And I can remember, the guy had asked me a question, and it was quite a reasonable question. I think I'd kind of bumped into the guy a few times before, and to be honest with you, I was focused more on the smell of this guy's breath. I completely missed exactly what he said to me. I didn't have a clue what he said to me. So I ended up having to then backtrack. Sorry, I totally missed that. I was away on cloud 9 there. What was it you said? And then he had to go on to repeat himself. What I didn't do was, I most certainly wasn't honest, telling him exactly what it was I was thinking about, the smell of his breath. Now this is the thing. All right, let's just say, for example, you see a crinkle on my shirt, or sometimes, because I'm Scottish, I might speak a little bit too fast, or I might slur my words because I don't do 10 takes on these videos, all right? Just talk from the heart to give you as much insight and understanding as what I can do. And it might be the case of something about me, or something about my hairstyle, or something about whatever that you don't like, and you find this disruptive and distracting. And here's the thing. When we learn to make peace with our own imperfections in life, we sometimes find it easier to make peace with other people's imperfections in life, so that we can better see people, hear people, and fundamentally understand them. Everything keeps on coming back to this word understanding, doesn't it? All right, so we've got to be aware of what's standing in the gap between us and them, between you and me. What prejudices have you got? Have you already made of me? Do you like me? Do you dislike me? Do you find me attractive? Do you find me unattractive? Are you allowing this to stand in the way of you understanding what it is that I have to teach you? If so, deal with it. Work on yourself, all right? Sometimes we will be driven more by being right than by listening, hearing, and understanding. And again, this kind of really spawns out of those rational thinkers. Remember the rational part of our mind that I shared a few videos back? Sometimes we'll operate out of a set of beliefs, and we all do this. What are our beliefs? Well, our beliefs are just a set of ideas that we've arrived at and that we've concluded to at some stage earlier in our development in life. But our beliefs, they're not just whims. Our beliefs kind of function as the invisible foundations that we build and base our lives on. I mean, think about it. Many people in the world will go to war to defend that which they believe. Many people will argue until they're blue in the face to defend that which they believe to be true. And here's the thing. Our beliefs will often determine our actions, our behaviors, our bad habits, those things that we say yes to, those things that we say no to. Our beliefs tend to tie in with those things that we value and prioritize the most in life. I've devoted an entire section to really help you understand this as well. I think it's section 5 of the course. So, here's the thing. When we are rigid in our thinking, and we are not willing to acknowledge that there's any degree of truth outside of that which we've experienced for ourselves as human beings, it doesn't matter what information is presented our way. It might be the case you've read a CBT textbook, and then I say something that kind of conflicts with what you've read in a book at some point, in the past. You're going to say that's wrong, or this is right, and I'm right, and that's wrong. And life becomes more about being right or being wrong than actually understanding We grow in insight and understanding in life when we compare that which we know or we think we know to new information. So we then go on to make a wiser and more well-informed decision about what's actually going to work better for us. What idea is going to serve us more? All right, being right or being wrong is kind of irrelevant. It's kind of the need of the insecure man and woman, isn't it? Did I just say that on live TV? Oh my goodness, right? It's one of these little truths in life. Being right and being wrong is the need of the insecure man and woman. So, when we're more focused on being right, this can come at the cost of us listening to, hearing, and fundamentally understanding what another person is saying, and also where they're coming from, their perspective. So, sometimes we will over-identify with an idea instead of just simply trying it on for size. And this will actually happen generally by those who operate more outside of the emotional part of their mind. Right? Now, I think I've said one or two statements that some people might perceive as being non-politically correct or a little bit controversial. If I was to say that feelings are just feelings, they are not conditions, they are not illnesses, then some people are going to be nodding their heads saying, yes, I agree with that. That makes total sense. Other people who are completely emotionally led, who don't understand themselves on this sort of level, they'll be saying, no, I've been told by a doctor or by someone in the past that I have this contracted this illness and condition and all this kind of thing. And then what they think they know actually stands as a barrier in between them understanding more. All right. Sometimes when we're clinging on to ideas and thoughts or information as fact, as ultimate truth, it's our own small thinking that can sometimes prevent us from understanding more. Sometimes we'll strive more to defend that which we think we already know than to understand more than what we already do know. Wrestle with that one, see how that one fits. So when we over-identify with an idea, instead of trying it on for size, we'll sometimes reject any idea or any frame of thought or any frame of reference that contradicts our own frame of reference or our own way of looking at life. And this is something that as practitioners, especially if we want to go on to work with and serve or help other people, we've got to deal with this ourselves first and foremost, all right? I've used the word prejudices, getting over our own personal prejudices and biases. I've mentioned that a few times just in the last few clips. Why? Because it's important. When teacher repeats something, he repeats something for a reason, because it's critical. All right, really, really important stuff. We don't want to over-identify with ideas, and you will do throughout this course. You want to try them on, you want to then adapt and adjust yourself accordingly as life. Life is all about growing. It's about growing up and out of the limiting ideas and beliefs and perspectives and worldviews that we developed about ourselves and about how life is or how life should be back at an earlier stage of our development and growth in life. Right? Many of the beliefs that we operate out of, we develop back when we're children. All right, so growing in maturity is obviously about developing a more mature and grounded set of worldviews, opinions, and beliefs. It's not about being right or being wrong, and it's not about over-identifying with anything. The purpose of all that we do in life, when on this journey, is about us growing in insight and understanding of ourselves and fundamentally of other people. So we're only ever going to grow in these insights if we are listening effectively to them. All right, and not allowing ourselves to sometimes get in the way, which is pretty much the essence of what I'm talking about here. So, here's a big one. All right, this is a great one for all the rational thinkers here. All right, but this is pretty much just conventional education, isn't it? I mean, if I was to go on a bit of a trip down history lane here, and go back around about 200 years ago. Now you had here in Dunfermline, where I live in Scotland. Dunfermline was the birth town of a great man called Andrew Carnegie. Now, Andrew Carnegie has been referred to as one of the founding forefathers of industrialism. Now, he ended up going on to erect all these steel factories throughout the Americas and made millions and millions and millions. And today, the Andrew Carnegie Trust and the foundation, they still go on to to make a positive impact all around the world. What I'm saying is, back then, Andrew Carnegie made all of his money. He was quite philanthropic by nature. What one of his main life goals was to make the same level of information available for other people that he'd had available for him. Now, I think he had a mentor back when he was young who used to buy him and give him a lot of books, which is where he grew in a lot of self-knowledge and self-awareness. But back 200 years ago, there wasn't libraries throughout Scotland. So one of Andrew Carnegie's goals was to have a library in every town and village and city throughout the nation, which he ended up going on to fund and support. But going back then, schools and the education establishment as we know it today was actually put in place to create a workforce that would go into industrialism, to work in the companies, to produce, a gross domestic product. That's what it's referred to here in the United Kingdom. Ultimately, boost and grow the economy. So governments would determine what topics were delivered in schools: maths, technology, English, literature, English language, and then obviously they've gone on to evolve to become what they are today. And the way that I'm training this course, the way that I'm teaching you this course right now is very, very different from how many other people might train a course in CBT. They might be, going from a textbook and just giving you information or models and remember this and here's a test and, here, if I ask you these questions now, you're either going to answer right or you're going to answer wrong. That's not what we're trying to do here, all right? My goal isn't to fill your head full of information and expand the rational part of your mind. There's no point in this, because if you grow in your, rational, but you don't grow in your relational, well, how are you ever going to connect with other people in a meaningful way? All right. How you do this is by applying information to yourself and fundamentally growing through the process. Because when you grow in awareness, you become better able to manage yourself. And it's only when you are managing yourself more effectively that you're then in turn better versed and able to influence other people, which is kind of what CBT is all about. So, a real barrier that can stand in the way, it prevents many people from really learning and understanding information is when they try to remember. And we have some people right now who are writing all these points down frantically, but don't try and write everything down. There's no need. Just listen to what I'm saying and apply the principle to yourself. If you see, oh my goodness, yeah, that's something that I do, well, stop it, adapt and adjust, change and grow. This is what it means to be human. Sometimes we will end up sympathizing with a person instead of empathizing with them. And again, this is a great one for those who operate outside of the emotional part of their mind. Right, think about how valuable giving a person sympathy is. Think about what sympathizing with a person actually does. It doesn't do anything whatsoever. Remember growing up, I had an uncle growing up, and every time he came to the house, he was always complaining. He would complain about his sore back and his sore legs and his pain and his migraines, and work was so tough from always complaining about something. And I could remember my mum and dad would always sympathise with him. And it was kind of like this guy had become addicted to sympathy. All right, now, I'm not sure whether that childhood experience was what triggered my my disgust of sympathy seekers, all right? But here's the thing. Sympathy is very, very different from empathy, all right? Sympathizing is kind of very, very superficial, isn't it? When someone comes to us and they'll say, Mummy dropped me on my head as a baby, Daddy stuck a nappy needle in my bum, made me cry, pulled my thumb out my mouth when I was sucking it, something like that, and it's left me mentally and emotionally scarred. All right, now I'm not undermining or belittling anyone's earlier childhood experience here, but what I'm saying is it doesn't matter how traumatic or devastating a person's life experience has been. We can sympathise with them until the cows come home, but sympathising is not empathising. We can say, oh, that's really sad. Oh, how sad. Oh, how that's sad. Oh, that's just so sad. And what changes? Nothing. Empathising is about seeking to understand. Comes back to that word, understand again. All right? My goodness. So I'm just wondering, what was this experience like for you? Help me to understand your perspective. And how is this holding you back today? Help me to look at life through your eyes, because it's only when I put myself in this position that I'm going to be able to identify the questions that I need to ask to help you perhaps see that your actions, your behaviors, your habits aren't possibly serving you as effectively as what you would like them to. Remember, most people go through life just doing the best that they can. It's not like anyone wakes up in the morning with an agenda to go out and screw their life up or mess up or offend anyone or make some mistakes or completely devastate a relationship. But yet these things happen. Why? Because as human beings, none of us are perfect communicators or people. All right, we're all just doing the best of what we have. So what we want to look at as CBT practitioners is how it is that we can more effectively empathize with people. Then that way, we don't need to sympathize. We can actually become the conduits of change in other people's life that might end up eradicating the sympathy-seeking behavior that many people go on, right? That kind of spawns out of kind of like a victim mindset, a victim mentality, when a person genuinely believes that they are hard done by, or that they were entitled to something that they did not get. Again, both very, very unhelpful attitudes that this man might have a few words to say about a little later in this section of the course. Again, moving on, another barrier to effective listening is when we allow our own personal prejudices and preferences to undermine the learning process. All right? And again, this is all to do with our expectations sometimes not being met. I remember, let's just think about, a great example here was last year when I went to see, it was one of the Marvel superhero movies at the cinema, all right? So that's it, The Secret's out. I love superhero movies, I do, and I think I went to watch the first of the Avengers movies, I think it was Infinity War. Now, I went across there understanding that it's not what we find in life that disappoints us the most, it's when our expectations aren't met. So I'd purposely disciplined my mind not to have any expectations on how amazing this movie was going to be, all right? So I'd gone along there and I wasn't thinking about it. I was purposefully not thinking about how amazing this movie was going to be, and I went in and it was just 2.5 hours of absolute awesomeness, all right? My goodness, this movie was fantastic, all right? And I'm doing my best not to have any expectations of part 2 that's going to be coming out soon, or what, as you're watching this, it might already have come out, all right? But what I'm saying is, when we came out the movie, there was obviously all the Marvel fanatics, right, coming out, and there was mixed conversations going on, right? Some of the crowd that were coming out, they were of the same opinion that I was. That was the best Avengers movie that's ever happened. And then other people were saying, yeah, it was okay. It wasn't what I was expecting. Kind of like Marvel should have made a movie to meet the expectations of this individual. And if you think about it, right, this is kind of a mindset that many people operate out of. It's quite limiting. It's quite immature, isn't it? Where we don't have our expectations met and then see that as a bad thing. Kind of like the world and all businesses and all programs and all teachers and all training courses should be met to our standards and our expectations, kind of like we are God or something like that. But listen, it's just a barrier to effective listening and hearing. And when we allow our own prejudices and preferences to undermine the learning process or our own experience of life, this comes at the cost of our own experience of life. All right? So, some big ideas to really get your head around here. Build them into your own life. All right? Try them on for size. Apply them to yourself and see how your life changes. When we have preconceived our ideas or expectations about what we will hear, that's quite similar to allowing prejudices and preferences to undermine our learning process. Both ideas are kind of the same there, so I won't unpack that in too much more detail. Sometimes we will be distracted by obvious external factors. All right, so as I'm filming this training course for you right now, all right, you've got absolutely no idea how much time I invest into preparing these slides. All right, me and technology, believe it or not, don't go too hand in hand. We don't complement each other. Well, I don't think we do anyway. So when it comes to starting filming, All right, I'm as prepared as what I can be for communicating a message. I have an intention, I have a goal, I know exactly what it is I want to say. So we turn on the camera, we get the lights in place, and then I focus. And I am now intent on communicating as clearly and as accurately and as articulately to you as what I'm physically able to. But what I can hear outside is some workmen drilling and hammering, because we've got a little bit of work going on in a different part of the building. And to be honest with you, I can hear it. I can hear it there in the background, but I'm not focusing on it because my goal here is to communicate to you. And this is what I'm saying, right? Sometimes a barrier to really effective listening can be when we allow ourselves to be distracted by things that we really don't need to be focusing on. Right? How many times have you been in a conversation with someone? Now, this happens with me in terms of my in-laws pretty much all the time. When it comes to Christmas Day, I'll have one of the in-law family members will say, "Okay, and we haven't seen you since last Christmas. And how's your year been? How's life?" And I'll test the water. I'll say, "Oh, well, it's been fantastic." And bear in mind, when someone asks me a question, I will not respond in depth unless I see that a person's actually listening and paying attention to me. So I'll communicate and I'll open up to the degree that they're actually listening. And every single time, it's never any different. Around about 2 or 3 minutes in, one of the grandchildren will run into the room and the person who's asked me this question goes, "Coochie, coochie, 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 coochie." And then they look at me and then they make out that they're listening, but what they're really more focused on is coochie, coochie, coochieing. All right? So I'll just say a few words and say, "Yeah, fine, everything's fine. The weather's fine, the cows are standing up. Yeah, the garden shed has expanded in recent months. Business is fantastic, we're dominating the world. Yeah, fantastic, and how are you?" And turn the conversation back on then as quickly as what I possibly can do. And here's the thing. When interacting with people, if another person is able to gauge that we are not giving them our full undivided attention, they are never going to open up to us because they, on some level, are not going to be able to trust us. They're going to know they cannot trust us to actually be there, fully present and available, ready to listen, learn, and understand them. So, sometimes the world can be going on around us, but see, when we're interacting with another human being, all right, it's our choice. We choose whether we focus on external distractions or whether we don't, right? This is obviously going to be determined by how disciplined we are in our own minds. So it's a process, my friend, it's a process. Last but not least, a barrier to effective listening can be when we are listening more to what might be being said instead of actively listening to accurately hear what is actually being said. All right? Now, this is a great one. When I used to do live trainings years ago, this is one of the things that used to frustrate me so much. Maybe this is something that I need to look into in a bit more depth at some point. And I would make a statement and I would say, finding the communicator attractive and disconnecting with them. And I'm the kind of guy who just says what he means and means what he says. There are no riddles in my words. I'm not trying to be creative in my speech or anything like that. I'm just saying what I mean and speaking as plainly as possible to help you understand. But some people, all right, sometimes those who are more rationally minded are sometimes of the mindset that unless information is so complicated and confusing and bewildering, then there can't be any value in it. An example of this, again, when I spent a couple of years, probably around about 12 months or so, studying neuro-linguistic programming. Right? Now, obviously, I'd studied counselling, therapeutic counselling, CBT, life coaching, many of the cognitive psychologies and helping modalities back then for the purpose of understanding myself more than anything else. All right, there you go. The cat's out the bag. I'm just being honest here. And I think it was one of the first training events that I hosted. There was a couple of guys in there, and it didn't really matter what I said. I could say, finding the communicator attractive and disconnecting with them, and then what they would say is, "So, are you saying that the cows aren't standing up and that the garden shed has moved 3 meters to the left?" Now, that's a bit of an exaggerated example, but people would sometimes respond to me when training and say, so are you saying this? And they're responding more to what they think I'm saying than what I'm actually saying. And then I would have to respond and say, well, no, if you just listen to me and hear me, you'll hear that what I'm saying is finding the communicator attractive and disconnecting with them. That's all that I'm saying. That's it. But does this mean, and are you really saying this and this and this and this? Say, no, I'm just saying exactly what I said. There's no riddles here, nothing else. And what I'm saying, just to wrap this video up, is sometimes we can overcomplicate things in our own minds unnecessarily, all right? Think about it. How complicated does life actually need to be? I don't know if you've ever taken time to answer this question. For me, I like to define myself as being quite a simple man, all right? I'm not interested in complicated theories. I'm not interested in bewildering processes, things that just confuse the living daylights out of me. But why does anyone need to be? Sometimes the world of academia can be great at overcomplicating simple life principles. But please allow me to convince you that it's not complex theories that transform people's lives. It's when they start building simple principles into the context of their day-to-day interactions with other people. Life does not need to be so complex. So, when we learn how to listen to other people more effectively, we'll learn how to hear sometimes what people are actually saying instead of what we think they might be saying, all right? And when other people then come to see that we're actually paying attention, we're actually listening to them, they'll start to trust us more. And when a person starts to trust us more, they will then feel far more confident within themselves, opening themselves up and actually being honest with us. Which is kind of what we need, all right, if we want to be effective at practicing CBT with them. So the purpose of this video is just about hopefully highlighting some of the main barriers that we all have in our own lives that prevent us from hearing other people as effectively as what we could otherwise be doing. So apply them to yourself, all right, in the course journal / learning log, note down if there's any of these ideas, these habits that you currently operate out of. And if so, go to work on yourself right away. We've created a workbook for you that you'll be able to download now in the additional materials section also. So why not spend maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes working through the workbook, checking yourself before you wreck yourself, give yourself a good checkup from the neck up, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next clip.